So, we're on, we put that up. Can I use this, is that alright? Should we put the first slide up? That'd be great. So, thanks Mark, hope it's going to work. Here it comes as if by magic. So we've been thinking about things I learned along the way, and I'll just check that's working. Oh good, it's working, that's great. So things I learned along the way, we're on week 3, and then, news flash, next week will be week 4. So you think you'd enjoy that. And guest presenter next week. The wonderful Tracy Ross will be standing here at the front. And it keeps floating between, are we going to do it together or is it just her? So just give her a little nudge that I can sit and doze off over there. Well, she's really, as you saw yesterday, ladies who were here, she's much more interesting than me. So there we go. So Tracy will be telling us next week about things we learnt along the way and the importance of the journey. And sometimes, this is a little trailer for next week, sometimes we want to get there quick and learn the lessons and cross it off. And life's not always like that, is it? So we'll be reflecting on that next week. So, week 1, are we living the dream? We thought about Abraham, and we thought about our walk along the West Highland Way. We dreamt this dream of walking for donkey's years, and then one day we got round to it, and you can go back and listen to both these sermons are on our YouTube channel, and also in our private Facebook group, so you can listen to them. So we thought about Abraham and his father Terah. Terah set out for the promised land and he settled halfway, didn't get there. And Abraham heard the Lord and off he went and he got there. And we thought about the dreams that God has given us and will we step into and live them. Last week we thought about how baggage slows us down and we thought about some of the things that we're holding on to that are holding us back and how we need to hand those over to God. We thought about Jesus saying, come to me all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens and I will give you rest. And generally when we see this sort of image on the screen, on the internet and places, it's often this verse has this sort of image, doesn't it, of someone just looking exhausted. A parent of young children or someone who's working night shifts or whatever it is. And actually it's interesting because that's not where the verse ends. The verse goes on to say, take my yoke upon you and let me teach you. Because I am humble and gentle at heart, for you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give to you is light. So what is Jesus saying? He's saying, come and I'll give you rest, and this is what rest looks like. And when you think about it, no one wants to carry a big heavy bit of wood around, do they? It doesn't look restful. But if you think of this as us being paired with Jesus, us joining Jesus in his work, us walking with him and joining him in what he's doing, and letting him bear the burden, then it does make sense that his burden is light. So we were thinking about how we lay down some of the baggage that's destructive in our own lives and how we take on Jesus' calling for our life. And it was a bit like lifting this train, which I think we all decided we couldn't do. And then we thought about how easy it can be to lift a train, and the driver, the operator, let's go with operator of this crane, is not trying hard, are they? They're relying on something that's beyond them to lift the train with power. And so we rely on God's strength instead of flapping around, then we can do great things. And today we're going to think about people are important. So you can look around at the people around you, just look at them and think how important they are. If you need to look round someone to see someone who's important, then you're not understanding. There we go. So these are things that we learned along the way. So this is Tracy and I walking the West Highland Way. This was the second last day. Or was it? Oh, I don't know, probably. Yes, it was. And we walked with this American couple and we saw them every day. And we saw them when they power walked past us. And the lady in front, just astonishing. They were not spring chickens, and she was formidable, is formidable, I don't know. And then her poor husband, that sounds really terrible, he broke his glasses on the first day, and he really needed them, because he couldn't see anything without them. And so he tried to walk without them, and he came past us on the first day like this. Which isn't very helpful, is it? And in the end, we caught them up, and they had booked the baggage transfer service we talked about last week also does like a shuttle bus thing as well, so if you don't want to do it all, they pick you up and drop you off. It's brilliant, I can tell you that. And so he spent his week in the minibus while she walked along the way. And then finally, I think it was on this day or the final day, his glasses were repaired. And so he was able to join in on the way. We saw them every day. We had a meal with them on this evening, which was nice. We went into a restaurant and they were there. And they said, come and join us. And I thought, great, you know, because I've got a Scots ancestry. So my instinctive thought was, great, you're going to pay. But then we paid our own bills at the end. And we had a lovely talk with them. And it was strange, because this was just before I became a regional minister in the east of England several years ago. And I was trying to explain to them what a regional minister was. And they said, so you're going to be a bit like a bishop, are you? I said, well, if you want to put it that way. And so we got to know them and we saw them every day, people along the way. This was Tracy at the start, and you see the other people waiting to start. And it's strange in the morning if you go to Mulgai, or Milngavie, as the English say. That's how you would read it, but it's Mulgai. So this was us. We got there, and there were other people just milling around waiting to start. And there we go, 16 miles on that first day, raring to go at the beginning. And here we were walking along the way. This is just about half a mile in. And as we walked along, there's a strange sense of community on these walks. It's strange, isn't it? When you think if you're going to walk 96 miles, it's like driving along the motorway. You don't drive next to the same car all the way, do you? Or if you do, you know someone's following you. That's not ideal. But you don't, do you? You kind of go faster or slower. And the walking a long distance path is like that. You see some people on the day, and you stop in different places, and people overtake you and you overtake them, and you have a little chat and how you're getting on. And bizarrely, like the couple I spoke about a moment ago, we saw them every day. There was one lady who we saw on the first day and the last day. And I can't explain that to you. That's just weird, strange, isn't it? But that's just like, and its life is like that, isn't it? We see people along the way. And as we think about the life of our church, there have been people who've joined us along the way and have gone elsewhere, and perhaps those who've come back. And, you know, life is just like that, isn't it? And I think sometimes churches think too much about who's in and who's out, who's with us today. And I think we should think less like that and just think about people along the way. And I don't really mind if they think they're in or if I think they're in or any of that kind of stuff. I can't be doing with that, if I'm honest. They are just people. And we love them and they love us. And sometimes they're here and sometimes they're not here. And it's fine, isn't it? Because we're together along the way. And so here's some more people walking along the way. All these pictures I got where people are kind of bunched together. We're in the morning at the start of one of the stages. Because typically throughout the day you then got straggled and you then spread out. And those sorts of things. And there are places along the way, some of the iconic points. This is Connick Hill, just above Balmahar, and this is a famous spot, and it's a great spot you can get to, because one of the spots on the West Highland Way you can drive to within a mile of and go up and look at me, I'm on the West Highland Way, it's wonderful. So here's Tracy looking all mountaineery on a hill, and but you look at all those people behind her, and on that day we saw a whole load more people, because it's just a spot you can get to really easily, and there's a beautiful view of Loch Lomond from the top there. And here's dear old Papa, who's kept making a guest appearance today. And on the first day, at the end of the day, my parents were living fairly nearby, so they came and picked us up on that day. And he's looking very thoughtful. Hasn't got two hands on the wheel, but we won't dwell on that. And he came and picked us up. And at the end of that day, you can ask him at the end, I completely had it. And it was funny, my sister and her husband were with us at the time. And as we went into the house, I think he said, who's never going to make it tomorrow, is he? And if he didn't say that, that's what I was thinking. And there was just wonderful relief to be in a car, in a seat, as I completely had enough at this point. So, question for you. Can you spot Tracy? I can. She's behind you, yes. Can you see her? She's right a dot at the end of that path. Or how about on this one? Can you see Tracy on that one? So I can't see her on that monitor because it's too far away. You probably can't see her either. Can you see her? Can I use a laser pointer thing here? See if I can put the laser pointer. Oh, it's not working on there. Did it work on there or not? Isn't that bizarre? It doesn't work on the screen. Well, there we go. She is on there. Perhaps you can see her, perhaps you can't. Can you see her on that one? That one's a bit easier because you can see the dot on the landscape. You can see that thing there is not a little tree or a bush. That's Tracy. And so forth. We could go on. There's Tracy, the dot at the end. There's Tracy, the lime green rucksack. Rain cover is on. It was Scotland, so the rain cover was on quite a lot. That's Tracy. You can see the lime. Oh, it's gone too far. The lime green, nearly at the Inveroran Hotel. Well, I'm still up on top of the hill, hobbling along. There she is again. And there she is again, about to go over the horizon down into Kidlochleven. Because here's me, plodding along. It's the hare and the tortoise, travelling together. If ever God had a sense of humour, it was asking Tracy and I to go on a long distance walk. And Tracy on one of the days hurt her shoulder because she'd spent so much time waiting around for me. And this is her with her. I am in absolute agony. You can see that face. And I'm going to have to take that off the screen, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. And she's waited. And sometimes waiting for people who are slower than you is painful. And I'm not talking about when we're out walking, I'm talking about in life. Do you know when you think, why aren't we pressing ahead? Why have you not got this yet? Why is it? And we get quite impatient with each other, don't we? And actually churches shouldn't be like that, should they? We're places where we journey together. On this day, we're coming just up to the top of Loch Lomond, and we were so late in the day, Tracy had to go ahead, or we would have missed checking in, and that would have been unfortunate. We'd have had to sleep in the ferns here on the hillside. So she went ahead and left me behind. And on this day, as we were travelling down into Kidlochleven, this is the day I referred to last year where we'd stayed in the same place for 2 nights and the taxi came and got us and we were walking back. So because we checked in and she knew where we were going, she knew I would be okay, she left me. And it was like a war movie, honestly. I was like, leave me behind. She was like, no. And I was like, yes. Because if you leave me behind, I can sit still a bit longer. And I was about an hour behind her probably in the end. But she got to go back and put her feet up and have a bit of peace and quiet. So we travelled along the way and we travelled together. And I was struck by this African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's really helpful, isn't it? I'm sure this should be in the Bible. It's not, but it just kind of feels like it ought to be. And actually, Tracy is amazing and quick. But she and I are very different, because I'm good with maps, and so I couldn't care less if there are signs or not, whereas Tracy will only walk somewhere if there's good signage, because you're not quite so good with maps, are you? And so she can go really fast the wrong way. Yes, I'm not criticising her, we're just better together. Better together. And aren't we like that when we think of the people we work with, or the people we know, or the people we've travelled along the way with in church life, or wherever it is? We're just better together often, aren't we? How do we stick together? How do we journey together? Because on the way, we met some amazing people. So here was a young German student, and here's me as a 45-year-old man. I'm looking at this young girl. I shouldn't call her that. She was probably 20, a young lady. I'm looking, and I'm going all kind of fatherly on her. I'm like, you shouldn't be walking by yourself. I didn't say this to her. This is what was in my head. You shouldn't be out here by yourself. It's dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's Scotland. There are strange people around though. But, and she was wild camping. And I'm looking at her thinking, oh my goodness, this is awful. And she walked along the way, and we saw her earlier in the day, and we just said, are you okay? Do you want a bit of company? She's like, oh no, I'm come out for some peace and quiet. But then when Tracy caught her up and they were moving, you had quite a nice chat, didn't you? I didn't talk to her because I couldn't keep up. Well, there we go. So we met people along the way. And along the way, little communities sprung up. This is wild camping. This isn't a campsite. Someone pitched their tent towards the end of the day. So someone came and pitched their tent next to them. And a little community forms, which in one way sounds really terrifying in my head, but in another way is quite beautiful. And if you can make it a safe place, if you imagine it as a safe place, again, to me, that's a picture of church, as we should be portable. This isn't church in here. Church is portable, isn't it? Church is like where we meet with Jesus in the midst, whether it's in a home or at the shops or wherever it is. People along the way just meeting together, doing life together, There's Tracy again. That's the person we met on the first day, and this was us again meeting someone. This day was a strange day as we walked across Rannoch Moor, and along the way, and we met this lady, and I don't think we saw pretty much anyone else that day. We saw a lot of rain, but that was about it. There was a family that came past us on one day who never saw them again. And where they came from, I got no idea. And these little kids toddling along the way, amazing. And then there were some men in kilts. I'll just throw that in as a bit randomly. I was very glad it wasn't a blustery day that day. I was a bit worried what we might have seen otherwise. And so we made it to the end. We travelled together to the end, looking happy. The original end of the West Highland Way. And the reason it's not the end of the West Highland Way is because between the original end and the end is Fort William High Street. And someone decided it'd be great if they could make you walk down the high street past all the shops with high quality tat of like Nessie and things like that. So that's where you walk to the end. So we got to the end. The reason in this picture we look so happy and casually dressed is because our B&B, no camping for us, our B&B was about 300 yards in the other direction. So we had come into the B&B absolutely soaked. It had rained all day. We'd walked 16 or 17 miles, dripping. And this guy said, and bearing in mind, he's just like someone who's like serving us. This is like Manuel the waiter. Again, if you're old enough to remember him, see? He's from Barcelona and all that. And he just looked at us, and he didn't laugh to his credit, which was just to take some self-control. And he just said, just come in, go in your room, I should say, before he said the next thing. Take everything on, put it in this basket, put the basket outside the door, I'll put it in the wash for you. And that's great, isn't it? And so that's why their name is on the screen, because I think that's worthy of a mention. That's a safer story than the Spark Plugs one. So if you're in Fort William, do stay with these people, are wonderful people, and they really looked after us. And when we walked a few years later, we walked from Fort William, and they let us leave our car there for free. They're just lovely people. And it's people you meet along the way. And we don't have that experience in every hotel or B&B, do we? And here they are again, the wonderful parents. And so the parents came and picked us up. And we went out for the day, and this was us at Glenfinnan. I'll say more about Glenfinnan in a moment. And so here we are. And so we don't have to walk back, which is significant, because they came to take us home along the way. And then there was this family from Belgium that we met along the way, and we saw them every day. And then randomly we bumped into them at Glenfinnan, which is like 30 miles away from the end of the walk. And it was great. So, what have we talked about? We talked about following Jesus along the way. Now, following Jesus is supposed to be a group activity. That's what it's designed for, okay? So let me explain that to you. So in the New Testament, there are 57 times when it uses the phrase one another. Love one another, encourage one another, build one another up. You remember those sorts of verses. If you can find all of them and write down the Bible references, you're going to get an amazing prize, which is me saying, gosh, you're not busy, are you? And you can Google the list if you're interested. It's great, it's amazing. So to put it another way, there are 57 things, 57 commands of Jesus, of God in the Bible, you cannot obey if you're a Christian, just you and Jesus. It's important that, isn't it? Because there are some people who are like, no, I'm a Christian, it's me and Jesus. Now, you can be saved and going to heaven, you and Jesus. And that's important to say. You can have a relationship with Jesus, but following Jesus is designed to be a group activity. Jesus almost never talks to one of his disciples. Have you ever noticed that? He often talks to two of them, or like when he goes off with just like one or two, he takes two or three of them. There's a group of them. Always a group activity. Always how can we learn together along the way? How can we grow together? And there's this verse in Ephesians, you Gentiles. So those of us who aren't Jews, you're no longer strangers and foreigners, but you're citizens along with all of God's holy people. You're members of God's family. So God is, Paul who wrote this, writing God's word, is saying to the church, you may not be Jews, but you're still part of God's people. You're not on the outside. God has saved us. And we thought about that when we shared communion. And then you get this. Paul says you should imitate me just as I imitate Christ. And it's quite a challenging verse, isn't it? Because I would say, there are things about me and my faith that you should imitate. Because there's stuff I think I've worked out, or kind of worked out. And there's stuff about my faith you probably definitely shouldn't imitate. Because we all kind of feel that way, that we're all works in progress, don't we? But nevertheless, I think this is really key as we learn from one another. We learn from one another. And that's why I like to do things interactively, which we've not done a lot of today, so I'm sorry about that. Love your neighbour as yourself. Carry each other's burdens. And in this way, you will fulfil the law of Christ. And I love that sense of, often people think about Christianity as me and Jesus. What do I want? What suits me? And I love this sense of carry each other's burdens. Oh, look at this person struggling over there. It would suit me to stay at home and watch the football. It would suit me to be sitting on a beach. But I need to go and carry their burden. That's church. And I need to challenge us with that. And I need to challenge myself with that. Because as Christians, there are some of us who need to break out of Christianity is about what suits me. Because biblically it's not. It's not. We just need to hear that. And that's a tough thing to hear when we're not feeling like it, like doing God's stuff and helping each other. Sometimes we just need to make that sacrifice and go anyway. So back to Glenfinnan. There we are in Glenfinnan. And the Glenfinnan is the strangest place because you go in the gift shop and half of it is about the Jacobite uprising and half of it's about Harry Potter. And that's because the Glenfinnan Viaduct is the bit in Harry Potter where the train goes over like the curved bit. That's Glenfinnan Viaduct. And so you go there and it's a very odd place where they decided the Jacobite stuff's not going to make them enough money, so they've gone full on Harry Potter. And so if you like the old Harry, then you can go there. In 1745, long before Harry Potter, Bonnie Prince Charlie landed at Glenfinnan and he raised the Jacobite standard. And effectively he was saying to all the other Scots in the area, are you with me? Are you with me? Because we've been oppressed by the English for too long. And we need to say, no. This isn't all right. This isn't Mel Gibson. That's a different thing. There's no freedom. This is different. This is the Bonnie one. And so they came together, the Jacobites, and they invaded and they drove the English out of Scotland. And they got as far as Derby, far into the south of England. Which you would think it is when you're coming from Scotland, doesn't it? But it's strange when you read that as people who live down here, isn't it? And it's interesting that sense of people who just came together, who individually were powerless, but together could do great things. And then we were walking through Fort William, and we came across the model of this car. Tracy tried to make friends with him, but he wasn't very talkative. And you probably can't read that. But essentially, this is a bronze replica of a Ford car that was driven to the top of Ben Nevis. So, in a bid to assure customers that Ford had superior quality to the other cars of the time, Mr. Alexander ordered his son to drive a Model T Ford from the foot of Ben Nevis to the peak. Isn't that fantastic? And I think it did say on there, several days later he returned. Several days. And what's astonishing, in a date that I've not written down, 2011, they decided they were going to recreate it. But having risk assessed it, they weren't allowed to drive a car to the top. So it took, how many of them? Where is it? 77 people to carry the parts of the car to the summit where they rebuilt it. Isn't that great? What a wonderful story. A picture of church. Who's going to carry the car to the top of Ben Nevis? I'd have enough trouble carrying myself up there. Who's going to carry the car? Well, I can't, but we can. Okay, perhaps not just we in this room, but it can be done. Will we pull together? Will we do amazing things together? Will we serve God together? So I'm going to leave you with these 5 questions, and in the questions I'll produce this week, all these images will be in there. So, Question number 1. Who are you cheering on? Who are you cheering? Pom-poms are optional. Who are you cheering on? Your superpower is encouragement. But will we use it? And I think of times in my life where I've done things and I've been miserable and I thought I went really well, but awful. And someone just came up to me and said, "Do you know, that was really helpful when you said that." I'm like, "But I was going to go home and cry." Do you know what I mean? And sometimes it's just so easy to go to someone and just say, "I really appreciated when you did that thing for me." You know, I appreciated Chris. Here's Chris. He's a very organised fella. And he planned the songs like before the dawn of time. No, it was earlier this week, wasn't it? And then I planned the service and I spotted on the road and we were having communion. And I'm like, "Oh, do you know, communion doesn't fit into my service." So I had to change it and I had to go to the one who does things before the dawn of time and say, "Would you mind changing some of the songs?" And you very graciously did. And I appreciate that, so thank you. So I want to encourage you. Do you see how easy that is? Just to go up to someone, just to go to who's doing the kids' church today, I didn't notice, but just who's doing the youth group. Really appreciate it. To the people on the tech desk, you know, who can we encourage? Just to think of someone who made us smile this week or someone who was there for us. Can we send them a text or a card if you're that sort of person? You know, just to say thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Who are you cheering on? Secondly, who are you supporting? Who are you supporting? We all need help in life. Everybody needs somebody. I'm not going to start singing it. Who are you supporting? And in turn, who is supporting us? Because these things are all cyclical, aren't they? Who are we following? Are you looking at this lady thinking, "Oh, she looks nice, I'll follow her, that's all right, follow her over the bridge." But then look at the bridge. And you think, "Well, that's okay. She thinks, you know, it must be all right." Who are we following? Who's in charge? Is it Jesus? Is it one another? How are we deciding who we're following? Together we're stronger. Looking at this bridge, which looks a bit more strong, doesn't it? You look at all the struts there and all the things that are holding it together. Together. Not me. Not what I can do for Jesus, but together, what can we do? Some of you look like you don't want to cross that bridge either. We'll pray for you at the end. It'll be all right. And finally, everyone can play a part. And you look at this pit crew, changing the tyres. My favourite person is the person on the right who's leaning over the wall, chucking a tyre. Be that person who chucks a tyre at people. Isn't that wonderful? And unless he's throwing that tyre at someone who's expecting it to come towards them, they can't change it quickly, can they? Isn't that brilliant? Be the person who lobs tyres at people. Everyone can play a part. The Bible says we are all the body of Christ. Each person has a part to play. So 5 questions there for us to think about as we live this week. So I'll zap those. I'll put them on Facebook later and we'll zap them around by email. So let's pray. God, thank you so much that you've called us to serve you together. Help us as we live our lives, as we follow you, to remember that people are important along the way. Forgive us, God, when we take one another for granted. Help us to be encouragers. Help us to cheer one another on. Help us to support one another, to help those who are struggling. Help us to follow you, Jesus, and to follow what we see that is good in one another. Help us to pull together rather than working individually. And help us to work hard cooperatively, each person playing the part that you've called us to play.